Arch Advocate Podcast, Wednesday, January 9th. Welcome back. No intro music today. We're going to get right into it. We're going to be talking a little border wall speechy speech by President Donald J. Trump. Going to be talking a little bit of Jordan Peterson, I'm sure. I have it in my mind. I want to get there, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to tie all this in within an hour, but I'm going to try. But first, your morning devotional. Ready? This is January 9th. And again, I'm reading from a devotional book written by a lady named Sarah Young, who was a missionary for some time. She wrote a devotional called Jesus Calling. And it's a devotional book that is written in the first person. So I hope you like it. And if this isn't your speed, then I highly recommend you pick up Oswald Chambers' My Utmost for His Highest. So that's also a really good one. In fact, at some point in the year 2019, I will pontificate and give praises to Oswald Chambers. He was a remarkable man. Anyways, here's today's. Let me read to you here. It says, "I am with you and for you." That's Jesus calling. I am with you and for you. When you decide on a course of action that is in line with my will, nothing in heaven or on earth can stop you. You may encounter many obstacles as you move forward with your goal, but don't be discouraged. Never give up. With my help, you can overcome any obstacle. Do not expect an easy path as you journey hand in hand with me, but do remember that I, your very present helper, am omnipotent. Much stress results from you wanting to make things happen before their time have come. One of the main ways I assert my sovereignty is in the timing of events. If you want to stay close to me and do things my way, ask me to show you the path forward, moment by moment, instead of dashing headlong towards your goal. Let me set the pace. Slow down and enjoy the journey in my presence. Now it's a very distracting time. There's a lot of things going on that can cause anxiety. You're looking around and President Trump is talking about a border wall. That's something that every president, for as long as I can remember, talked about. Every one of them, Democrat and Republican alike. And yet, here we are. We've got this particular situation where you've got all these people saying, "Oh, that's racist," and it's un-American to say that, and it's just like, God, it just gets so confusing with all of the lies and the political posturing, which is a fancy, multi-synonym way of saying lies, right? I mean, politicians, that's what they're known for. They're known for being liars. That's why we've been crying out for decades, plural. Like, please, just get somebody in the Oval Office who isn't one of you. We're just sick of politicians, right? Remember in the 80s, they used to call the Republicans the party of the country club, or the country club party, or whatever it was that they said. And they were right, right? Republicans got real accustomed to, the money, right? And taking gifts and bribes from, the wealthy business owners that their policies had helped. And it really was that. It turned a lot of people away from the Republican Party because it was like, man, you guys are just, you're just getting rich. You're just a greedy asshole like everybody else. Why are you doing this? And it's real easy to get caught up in the lies. And so I'm always hesitant to say things that are absolute in a way that's like, well, you got to do this. It's like, no, we all have to do this. The truth is the only thing that's going to set you free. It's the only thing. You have to know the truth. And if you do, then when you do, you will be set free. Right? So I want to talk about something here. And I'm happy to start this off with that, with that devotional to kind of get your mind right. Like, no, like God, there is a God and he is with you. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the head, the will, and the word, right? The sun, the light, and the heat. God is with you. And because of that, you understand that is a being that is so powerful that when it speaks, universes come into existence. That's who you're dealing with. And if that God be for you, what and who could possibly pose a threat to you? Right? So when we're going through these times, you have to remember, like, no, you don't have to fix the SJWs. You don't have to fix academia that is lying to our children. You don't have to fix, and this is hard for me to say because this was something that, like, I was convinced was my calling, but it's not. Listen, again, it hurts me to say these words, but you don't have to fix Christianity. Right? You don't have to fix the church. Yes, there's a lot of brokenness, and not brokenness as in brokenheartedness, but brokenness as in dysfunction, bad teaching going on in the church. It's not your job to fix it. Your job and my job is to know the Lord. That's, if you don't believe me, go read John 17. It'll take you 5 minutes. Your whole thing, the whole thing that Jesus came to deliver to you was that you can know the Lord. And that word know is like, it's koinonia. And that's, that word koinonia means, like if you take one chunk of metal and melt it down and take another chunk of metal and melt it down and pour the two together and wait for it to dry. Now you've got one chunk of metal, right? That was taken from the two. It's joined. It is one. It is made one. And that word, when Jesus says, I have come that they may know you, it means it's koinonia. It means I've come that they could be one with you just as I am one with you and you are one with me and they and me and them, right? Like that's what has been promised to you. That's what's on the table for you in this walk with Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life. So one thing that kind of stuck out to me today is my wife, Albania is, for you new listeners, I'm in the nation of Albania. I'm way up in the mountains, and there's a whole story behind that. But Albania was the first nation ever to declare itself as an atheist nation. All right. Albania just recently came out of communism about 20 years ago. Okay, there was a war. A lot of people died. My wife went through it. If you want to cry your eyeballs out sometime, I'll put you on the phone with my wife and just let her tell you stories about her childhood. It'll rip your guts out. But Albania there's a lot of atheists, and because of the region that we're in, I'd say it's probably whoever's not an atheist, then it's half and half, either Christian or Muslim, right? And so my wife, she's always believed in God, but she's never had like a real, she's never read the Bible, and doesn't have the time that I have in my life spent, studying this book, trying to communicate with the Almighty, right? And not to speak, but to hear, you know what I'm saying? So I'm walking her through it. And this year, I began at the beginning, Genesis 1. And there's something I want to point out to you, and I'm really hoping that I can make this clear, that this all ties into everything. It ties into Trump's speech last night and Schumer and Pelosi's response to it. It ties into Jordan B. Peterson and what he teaches and his meteoric rise to fame and fortune and all that other stuff. It all ties in. And I hope that you see this. But you can read, you can see this. I'm about to read from Genesis chapter 3 from the beginning. So right at the very beginning, right? Genesis was written by Moses, and there's nobody who disputes that. There's no reason to believe that anybody but Moses wrote that. And Moses lived 3,500 years ago, so 1,500 years before Christ. All right? And he wrote a book about the dawn of time, which just that information alone tells you he was not there. Right? There's a whole story about how he came to the knowledge of how everything began. It's believed that, like, there's a point, for those of you who don't know, didn't grow up with these stories. There was a point where Moses asked God if he could see him, and God said, "No, you can't see me because you die. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to stick you in this rock, the cleft of this rock, right? And I'll put my hand over you, so you can't see. And then once I've passed you, I'll let you look at my backside. I'll let you look at my robe as I walk away, and then you won't die." And it's believed that, and there's Jewish scholars that say that it was in that moment where Moses looked at the backside of God that he had like this rush of knowledge of things that he didn't. Anyways, it's a long story. It doesn't matter. But and the reason I'm going to be bringing up Jordan B. Peterson is because to that guy, everything is metaphor alone. Metaphor alone, right? And what is metaphor? Well, Merriam-Webster since 1828 says, a figure of speech in which a word or phrase literally denoting one kind of object or idea is used in place of another to suggest a likeness or analogy between them. Look, when it comes to the serpent, right? And when it comes to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil versus the tree of life, right? The Garden of Eden, these sorts of concepts. God has a funny way of turning everything into a metaphor, everything that's real, and everything is a metaphor. I could tell you a story about this last weekend, right? There was a football game. I think it was the Bears and the Eagles. And the Bears were winning the game, and there was just seconds left on the clock. And the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Bears had a chance to win the game with a field goal. They were that close. And there wasn't enough time on the clock to where if the Eagles got the ball back, they wouldn't have had enough time to get it downfield. And so the field goal kicker goes out, and all he's got to do is put it through the uprights. But the Eagles coach calls a timeout to psych him out and screw with his mind, which almost always happens. And this time it worked. And because the guy got shook, right, because the other coach called the timeout, he was all rattled. And he went out there, and he kicked that ball, and he missed. Right? Now, that's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's a perfect metaphor. It's a perfect metaphor for a lot of things. Man, if you don't have your head right, you're going to miss. I used that analogy before about archery. It's like the reason why in archery they call missing a sin is because of the reason why you miss. Like when you are practicing archery, if you miss, it's because you weren't paying attention. If you pay attention, if you do everything the right way, right, you'll always put it where you want it. And it takes there's a lot of things that go into it. Your body position, right? Your mindset. Have you been visualizing? Are you visualizing now? Are you breathing right? Are you holding your arms right? Are you making sure none of your muscles are shaking? Are you calm? Are you confident? Like, there's a lot that goes into loosing an arrow. And if you miss, they don't call it missing. They call it sin. So you see what I'm saying? Now, why did I start talking about that? But, oh yeah, so the guy missed. It's a perfect metaphor. Keep your mind in the game, right? But, I just said it's a metaphor, but it actually happened. It's a thing that actually happened. You see what I'm saying? And God has a funny way, and over this year, I'll be pointing those things out. Like I'll show you where like one thing is a metaphor for another, and they both actually happened, right? Or will. But anyways, that's the mistake I think Jordan B. Peterson makes. Is that he's like, well, everything is just metaphor, right? So if I told you that story of the Bears kicker missing, and it's like, well, that didn't actually happen. It's just a metaphor. It's like, no, it actually happened. There's actually truth to that. Those are actual people. They actually lived, and it was actually just last weekend, right? So what about Genesis and all the craziness that goes on? There's, after chapter 3, there's a story of a gigantic flood and a guy named Noah. There's a story of a man named Enoch who he never died, he just disappeared. God just took him. There's some crazy stuff in this book, man. Right? And if you're not ready, dude, listen, if you're not ready for it, like if you can't handle it, fine. Go be an atheist. Go dive into Sam Harris. Go be a nihilist. Right? Go jump into that dark pit of despair. Right? But you come to this book and it's like, dude, it's okay to go to God and say, look, man, Father, I don't know what to make of all this, so please just give me what I'm supposed to get now. What am I supposed to get out of this right now? Because you'll come back 3 weeks later, 3 years later, 30 years later, 3 decades later, read it all over again, and you'll get something completely different. You have to ask as you go. It's like, look, I don't know if there was an actual tree that lived on this plane of time and space that we're in. I don't know if it was in this dimension. I don't know if it was just a metaphor. I don't know. But dear God, what do you have for me by telling me these stories? Give whatever daily bread. Whatever manna you have for me on this book, the daily bread, whatever you have for me, please give that to me today as I read this. Because otherwise, you're gonna fall into the trap that Jordan B. Peterson has, in my opinion, obviously fallen into, where it's like, oh, it's all just a metaphor, and it's just like Socrates said, and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, come on. All right, you're not that smart, Jordan. Nobody's that smart. Nobody's that smart. Nobody ever has been that smart. All right? Anyways. So, reading through the first 2 chapters of Genesis, we find the creation, right? The 6 days of creation and the 7th day of rest. Mankind and the 4-footed beasts were made on the 6th day. Right? And we find the making of the woman, right? God takes the rib, makes Eve, right? We find the institution of marriage. You will hear a lot of pastors say, like, the first recorded question in the Bible is, Adam, where art thou? Where are you, Adam? That's actually not true. I've heard that sermon, I don't know, out of the thousands of sermons on everything that's in this book, I've probably heard that sermon 100 times. First question in the Bible. It's God asking man, where are you? And although it's a very important question, right, where are you? Where are you? In your heart, right, on your journey, where are you? Where are you with God? And can you admit it? Are you hiding behind the rocks and trees? Are you hiding from him? It's fine if you are. It's fine if you are. Are you running away from God? Are you in the act of running away? Have you covered your eyes and decided to be like, well, if I can't see it, then it's not real, right? Pulling the covers over your eyes. All of those are fine. It's all fine. There is nothing you can do that God hasn't seen before, right? Just like when you go to the doctor, you got to pull out your junk. It's like, oh, I don't want to show this doctor. It's like, dude, that guy's seen it all, right? It's not he's not going to be shocked. So, but anyways, my point is that's actually not the first question. That is not the first recorded question in the history of man, if that's how you look at this book. This is the first question, and it wasn't asked by God. And I read, this is the verse 1 of chapter 3. It says, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he, the serpent, said unto the woman," yeah, did God say, "You shall not eat of every tree of the garden"? Right? That's the first question. So Satan, or the serpent, whatever, asks Eve. Says, "Yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden?" Question mark. But you have to look, you have to add a voice to it. "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made, and he said unto the woman," yeah, has God said that you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Is that what he said? Are you sure? Are you sure? That's the first question. That's the first question recorded by Moses in the book of Genesis. And it happens in chapter 3. And what does that question have to do with? Well, a chapter earlier, God told Adam, before Eve was created, God told Adam, like, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then Eve was created. God didn't say that to Eve. He said it to Adam, and Adam said it to Eve. Adam told Eve, listen, God, who I speak with every night, he said, don't eat from that tree. So the devil doesn't go to Adam, because Adam knows what God said, because he heard it say him himself. Instead, he does what the devil does. Goes through the back door. Goes to the wife, who wasn't present when that order was given. The order to not touch that tree. He goes to her and says, yeah, how about that? Are you sure that's what the will of God is? Are you sure? And that's all he says. That's all he needs to say. You know, in archery, or in boxing, or field goal kicking, now here's this field goal kicker. He goes out there, and he gets paid. I'm sure there's league minimums. Like in baseball, I think the league minimum is something like $250,000. If you get called up from AAA, you automatically get something like $250,000 bare minimum for that year, even if you only play that one game. Right? The fact that you made it to the major leagues means for that year you get $200 and whatever thousand. I believe that there are league minimums in football. So the field goal kicker, he's making no less than whatever amount of money. Who knows what it is, but it's probably, I don't know, $100,000. Maybe it's only $60,000, but that's a pretty good chunk of money for what your job description is. But his job is one thing. He has one thing. He doesn't have to find the open receiver. He doesn't have to worry about dodging the defensive backs. He doesn't have to worry about line of sight, anything like that. He doesn't have to do anything. He has one thing he has to do. He's got to kick that ball through the uprights. And 5 days a week, or 6 days a week during the regular season, whatever, like his only thing that he does for 8 hours a day, or however long their days are, is he goes out and he just kick all day. That's all he does. Kind of like the same thing in archery. It's like, look, it's really only one thing. Right? It's just one motion and then, loose. Practice, right? But just like in the case of that field goal kicker, boy, if you get pushed off of your center, in your mind just a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't have to push you off a cliff. I just have to push you hard enough to even cause you the slightest amount of imbalance. The slightest amount. Just like in archery, it's a hair of imbalance is going to send that arrow off into God knows where. The slightest amount. Satan doesn't have to get you to, he doesn't have to shove you down on the ground. He's just got to catch you just a little bit off balance. A little bit. Are you sure? Now she's thinking, am I sure? Oh my God. Am I sure? I don't really know. I mean, I didn't hear God say that. Who knows what the will of God is? Adam could just be pulling my leg. He could just be, that guy could be trying to keep me from something delicious. Who knows? I don't really know the will of God. Right? And it worked. Slight off balance. Are you sure? You sure that's the truth? Yeah. Did God say that you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of all the fruit of the garden, all the trees of the garden, but except for the fruit of the tree that's in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes will be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. That's the significance of truth, folks. It protects you from that. Right? In my own personal life, I've seen that scenario play out over and over and over again. Are you sure? You're not living in God's will. He's mad at you. He's really mad at you. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that you've committed the unpardonable sin. You've blasphemed the Holy Spirit. He's never going to accept you again. Right? For times when I was thinking that I was following God's will, there's that aching question in the back of my mind. Are you sure? Are you sure? And now I'm armed. I'm armed with that very account of that question. No, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And I don't have to be, because I can go to my Father anytime I want. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to him right now because I can hear you whispering that stupid question in my mind again. Are you sure? Right? Now you look around and you think, how has all this happened to where we find ourselves in the situation that we're in, where we have actual Congress people calling the leader of the free world a mother effer on TV for everybody to see, unashamed, and then the very next day we see her like with this really weird grin. Like, if you want to see the face of a demon, right, go look at that Congress lady as she's talking to these children. Oh, the devil, that's his highest crowning achievement. That's the thing he wants the most. He wants the innocent. When he subdues and attacks the innocent and God's heart breaks over that, that's a huge victory for Lucifer. Here's this creepy looking lady with her weird eyebrows and this weird plastic grin on her face, and she's talking to these children like, yeah, these kids, they want to impeach the president. Don't worry, I told them what impeachment means. Because they're kids, because it's like, obviously, like, those kids don't eat. Most adults could not tell you for $10,000 what the word impeach means. What that word is different from. Because the word impeachment is different from indictment. Most adults could not tell you what that word means. Most of them. And she's here saying, there's these kids on this video going, impeach Trump. And she's like, oh yeah, don't worry, viewers, if you're watching this thinking to yourself right now, like there's no way that those kids know. Don't worry, I explained it to them. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. So show me the video of the class with the chalkboard or the whiteboard where you explained it. You know what I mean? Like, no, you didn't. You're a liar. And I know lies when I see them. Because lies are almost always delivered through grinning lips. And that's a big grin you got on your face there, Emmer Effer lady. Congress lady Emmer Effer. You know what I mean? Like, how do we, when we look at these things, we can become very frustrated and very anxious, because it's like, oh, gosh, now what? That lady's a congressperson. Now what? You've got Sheila Jackson Lee down in, I think it's Dallas that she overlooks. Or is it San Antonio? I can't remember, but Sheila Jackson Lee, you ought to hear the things that comes out of her mouth. Then there's Rodeo Clown Lady down in Miami-Dade. You know what I mean? And you can look at these things and be like, okay, well, if those are the leaders of the free world, right? It goes, there's three branches of government. Congress is one of them, right? The legislature. If those people are part of the three branches, or the three chambers, little does she know, there's 36 chambers. Wu-Tang! If there's three, you know what I mean? If there's three branches of government, and Sheila Jackson Lee and Rodeo Clown Lady and Emmer Effer Lady represent like one of those branches, it's like, okay, I guess we're all done as a nation. If these clowns are able to get in there, right? If Hillary Clinton's out there talking about hot sauce, and we saw he died. Remember that? Remember her cackling laughter when she talked about like the brutal public execution of what's his name? Which, I'm not a fan of that guy, but it's like, come on, right? Like, yeah, I'm certain that guy did some things in his life that merited him being put to death, but it's like laughing about it and rejoicing over that guy and the way that he died. That's not. That's sick. That's a sickness. And it comes from the ability to kill people without having to look at them. And that's Hillary Clinton. And it can be a very stressful, anxious thing in your heart when you look at that, and it's like, well, if this is happening, if those are Congress people, those are in fact members of our Congress. Congress is part of our a main, if there's three legs, Congress is one of them. And if that's Congress, we're done. We're toast. You can get very anxious about that. Very anxious indeed. You can get swept up in the lies from both sides. All right? How many Republicans in name only, rhinos, have we seen with, what's his name that just left? Not Marco Rubio. What's the other guy? Oh, God help me. I can't. But there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of these people. Mitt Romney now. Right? Jeff Flake. John McCain before he died. It's like you're starting to see like, oh no, they're all liars. They're all liars. There's a couple of good ones in there. Trey Gowdy, he seems to be a guy that has a particular affection for truth. You know, there's a couple of them in there, but God, for the most part, it's like, gosh, you guys just, you guys seem to just be partying down on the American taxpayer dollar and giving money away to other countries while we are $20 trillion in debt. You know what I mean? Like, you can get very anxious, and you can get swept up in the lies. And by swept up, I don't mean like to buy into the lie. I'm saying like get to the point to where it's like, well, I just don't even know what the truth is anymore. I just don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so this guy wants $5 billion for a wall. You say that that's racist and horrible, and yet 3 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was, like, you Democrats voted for over $50 billion for the border fence, the repair of that fence, and for infrastructure around it. And now you have a problem with $5 billion. Okay, so I just, I don't know. And I don't have the time to go find out that, yes, in fact, just a few years ago, you guys voted yes for over $50 million for the exact same thing. It can get very tiresome very quickly to where you give up and you're like, I don't care what the truth is. I just don't care. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Right? When Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, it's because those three things, those are three questions that everybody has to get an answer for. What way should I go? What way should I go? What should I do for a career? Where do I go to church? Do I go to church at all? Where should I eat? What kind of food should I eat? What kind of person should I marry? Should I get married? College should I go to? Should I, you know what I mean? Like, what way do I go? It's very confusing. It's a lot of different paths. A lot of different paths. Should I write books? Should I, become a salesman? Should I, whatever. That's the way. Everybody has to find their way, and there's an infinite amount of possibilities, and only one of them is right. What way should I go? What is truth? What is the truth? Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, Trey Gowdy, Duncan Hunter, Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders. What's the truth? Could somebody please just, what is the truth? And the fact is, you can't get that from them. You can't get truth from people, because people are not the truth. Jesus Christ is the truth. And you need truth. You need truth as badly, if not worse, then you need to find your way in life. You know what I mean? Like your career path, who you're going to marry, how many kids you're going to have, if you're going to, all that stuff. You are dependent on that. You know what I mean? There is a dependency. You need to find the way. And if you don't, who was it that said that, most men live their lives in quiet despair? That's why. It's because most men never find their way. They never find, like, the thing that they were sent here to do. They just bounce through life, get a job. My grandfather was one of those guys. I look at my grandfather, he did, it was 20 years and then 30 years. He did, I think it was 20 years for the Navy and then 30 years for the post office, or it was vice versa. I can't remember. But he worked like low-paying federal jobs his whole life, because he was born in that meaty, sweet spot of the Industrial Revolution where you could just, as long as you had a job, and it could have been anything, you could afford a house in San Diego. You know what I mean? Like that was my grandfather's life. And so he just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna join the military, and once I'm done there, I'm gonna get my little pension, and then I'm gonna join the other military, the post office. You know what I mean? Like he worked like that kind of job his whole life. He never did anything of note. He never did anything of note. He never made his mark. That's how most people, he never found the way. God, I could be wrong, but I am supremely confident. Not 100%, but man, almost. I am supremely confident that God did not send my grandfather into the world to work for the post office and for the U.S. Navy as a radio man. I'm quite certain of that. Right? Everybody has a path, the way. And Jesus Christ said, I am that way. And you need truth more than you need water, food, and sleep. Your life depends on truth. You need it. It has to be a part of your diet. You need it. If you don't have it, you're going to die. You're going to confront most everything in your life with that question. Is like, okay, well, what's the truth of this matter? You get in a fight with your wife or your husband, whatever it is that whoever you are, and then it's over. You stop talking to each other for a few minutes. You go in the other room. You start thinking to yourself, "Am I the asshole in this situation? No, she's got to be the. What is the truth? What is the truth? Did I just blow it out of proportion? You know what I mean? Like, what is the truth? Most every situation that you're ever going to face in your life of your mind, right? Not, do I turn up the on-ramp or do I go up the off-ramp for the oncoming traffic? Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like situations where you have to figure it out. That's when your soul starts crying out for, I need the truth. I need the truth, people. And just like Pontius Pilate said, man, that famous quote, what is truth? What do you mean they call him the truth? What is truth? What is truth? And Jesus says, I am the truth. And how do I live my life? How do I know if I'm truly, like, I know that I'm alive, I know that I'm animated, I believe I have a soul and all that other stuff, but am I truly living? Am I truly alive? Am I truly living? Right? Connected to God, ignited by God, quickened, if you will. Am I truly living? What is life? What does it mean? What does that mean? What is life? And Jesus said, I am. I am. Those are, you have to think, man, like that's a heck of a thing to say out loud. You know what I mean? That's a profound, like, no wonder almost everybody that Jesus met was angry with him. Because he'd say stuff like that. It's just like, what do you mean you are the truth? And these times that we're in, you need the truth. I can't give it to you. Joel Osteen can't give it to you. Francis Chan, who I like. Rob Bell, if that's what you're into, who I don't like. Like these people, like your pastor can't give it to you. Your wife can't give it to you. Your husband can't give it to you. There's only one place. And if you don't want that, then go be with them. Go be with the liars. Go be with the people. Go be with Jordan Peterson, who says like, oh, this is all just metaphor. You might as well be reading Pinocchio. It's just like lobsters, man. Lobsters have a hierarchy, don't you know? This book is a great book. It's it's the most wonderful book ever written for metaphors. Bonk! Takes the life right out of it. It takes the life right out of it. That's the problem. That's the problem that I have with that, is that there's liars everywhere. There's liars everywhere. The synagogue of Satan. There's liars everywhere. You have to be very careful and immediate in prayer. Immediate in prayer. What that means is, because we were reading that yesterday, it's like, what does that mean? What is immediate in prayer? It means like every time, every single time. Donald Trump says all kinds of fentanyl coming across the border and it's killing more people per year than the entire 10 years of the Vietnam War. And he wants to build a wall and that's going to fix most of it. Oh God. Oh Jesus. Is that the truth? Is that the truth? Father in heaven, holy is your name. Let your kingdom come into this moment. Come and rule this moment and deliver unto me the truth. I don't know what the truth is. I just want to know the truth. Whatever it looks like, whatever it looks like. And then Chuck Schumer comes on and Nancy Pelosi and they say their stuff and it becomes even more confusing. Well, Donald Trump says this and it's just false and it's un-American and it's unethical and it's immoral. It's like, immediately go to prayer. Dear God, our Father who art in heaven, holy, holy is your name. Let your kingdom come into this moment and rule. Rule this moment. That's what it means to be immediate in prayer. And there is no end to the people who will try to distract you, just put you off just a little. It doesn't take much. Guy blows a whistle. Time out. Throws that kicker, whose whole job is to kick, which you probably could have deduced from the name. Kicker. Blows a whistle. Throws the guy completely off his game and costs his team another round in the championship race. Just a little bit. Doesn't take much. And what's worse is that kicker knew that was going to happen because it happens almost every time, and yet it was enough to, it just takes a little bit. Just takes a little bit. Are you sure? You sure that's what God said? Don't get it wrong. You know how God gets when you're wrong. Just a little bit. That's all it takes. That's why you must be immediate in prayer. And these are not times like your time. Like, you know, when I was a kid, when most of us, you know, as most of us are around the same age, within 15 years, right? You might be 30 years old, but you remember when you were a kid, like pastors used to talk about the certain type of Christian that was like, oh, you know, I'll get to it. And I can't really be a Christian right now because I'm focused on my career. I just got married. I just built a house. I'll get to it. And the reason why that was happening was because we could afford it. We could afford it back then. For the last 100 years, like we have had, the last 80 years, we've had pretty much uninterrupted growth of wealth in our country. And we got to a place where men, heads of household, fathers and husbands would say out loud, like, look, I just got some other stuff I got to go do right now. I'm not worried about famine. I'm not worried about drought. I'm not worried about plague. Like, all those problems have been solved. Now it's me time. I don't have to fear God. We've taken away most of God's weapons. Famine, drought, plague, that sort of thing. So maybe there was no God. I'd say, when I slow down, I'll get religious when I'm a little bit older. Just let my kids get through high school, and then I'll have time to slow down. It's like, listen, it wasn't okay then. In fact, the reason why we're in the situation now is because of that. But that season is over. It's over. There's no more of that. You are either in or you are out. If you want to be out, I would recommend you go get way heavy into Sam Harris and follow that abyss to its bitter end. Sam Harris and his ilk They are the perfect place for you. Because it's one or the other. It's one or the other. Pick, you get to choose. This is the beautiful thing about being made in the image of God. And the image is not 2 arms, 2 legs, 20 digits, a nose, 2 ears, 2 eyes. That's not what the image is. The image is godlikeness. And God is sovereign, and he has granted you sovereignty. It is up to you. You get to choose this day who you will follow. It's always been your choice. That is a matter of sovereignty. You have the kingdom of you. Now, you can either live in your kingdom and guard it as best you can, expand it as best you can, preach the good news about the gospel of you and the kingdom of you, or you can surrender your kingdom to the other kingdom, to his kingdom. Right? So just pick one, because it is your choice to do that. Go listen to Jordan B. Peterson make everything in this book reduced it to some metaphor, like it didn't happen. It didn't actually happen. Right? Go do that. If that's you. Right? Because again, if anything in this book that is said to be a true thing is false, then the whole thing is false. Right? You say, Pete, why do you say it that way? Well, because, for example, when Jesus teaches in parable, he used a lot of parables. There is no reason to believe that there was, when Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who found a treasure in a field. There's no reason to believe that there was actually a man, that Jesus was citing some dude. When Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like, the 7 virgins on the wedding night, and however that parable went. There's no reason to believe that like Jesus was citing, hey, remember that time those 7 virgins went to the wedding? It's like, look, it's not supposed to be. Like those are teaching tools. Like, here, let me tell you the story. I'm just going to make up this story real quick just so you can kind of see what's going on in my mind. Like that's called a parable, and it's not meant to be accepted as like a historical event. The book of Job, for example, right? The book of Job is, in my opinion, there's a pretty good chance that Job was not like an actual guy who lived. And the reason why people say that, some scholars, not all scholars, is because of the way that it's written. Right? Like if you read Shakespeare, you know that those stories didn't actually happen because of how perfectly the story is written. It's written perfectly. It has a meter, you know what I mean? The language is unique, you know what I mean? Like it's too perfect. It's so perfect that it's wonderful. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, this didn't actually happen because this is so perfectly written. Right? Or if you read Star Wars, or if you read Harry Potter, or if you read, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all that stuff, it's like, dude, you know that didn't actually happen because it's written so perfectly and powerfully. Right? Well, that's how the book of Job is written. It's written perfectly, and it is written as a perfect teaching tool to walk your mind through certain concepts, right? Now, maybe all that stuff was an actual like historical event, but I don't know that it matters. I don't know that if you accept, like if you come to the book of Job and you're like, I don't know, there's God and the devil in heaven and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. It's like, it does just... Maybe the whole thing is just it's a teaching tool to walk your mind through the process of how to ask questions. Right? Maybe it did happen, maybe it didn't. I don't think it's actually germane to, you know what I mean? Like, the purpose of the book of Job is like, when you read the book of Job, what's the first question that you ask? What's the first question that everybody asks? Why does God let bad things happen to good people? Why did God let Satan beat up on poor Job? Job was a good dude. Why did God let that happen? Why does God let good things happen to bad people? And the answer to that question, ready? Wait for it, is yes. Yes. That is the right question. Next. That's the right question. You just spend a little less time searching for answers and spend a little bit more time searching for questions. The book of Job is a book of questions. It's the art of asking questions. And what's the first question? Why did God let that happen? Yes, that is correct. That is the correct question. Just wait till you get to why does God let good things happen to bad people? That'll bake your melon. Right? So pick one. Right? Anyways, what I was saying is like, look, if you want to go through this book and look at it like, I mean, I don't know, it talks about like there's a gigantic flood and God's talking to this old man Noah who's, I don't know, he kind of looks like he was a drunk, and he put 2 of every kind of animal on this boat. I just don't know if I can handle that. It's like, okay, but can you struggle with it? Can you struggle with it? Can you go to God with that and be like, you know, God, and is it important? Is it important to you? My wife's question to me today was like, how come it says, why does God say, let us make man in our image? Who's he talking to? It's like, oh, that's a good question. It's an old question. Profound question. A lot of people have been asking that. And then later on it says, when they're kicking them out of the garden, it says, listen, we have to remove Adam and Eve before they eat from the tree of life, because if they do eat from the tree of life, they will become gods like us. Who's he talking to? It's like, ooh, good question. My questions are different, but yours are good. And what I was explaining to my wife is look, we've read 3 chapters and there's about 100 different really good questions in there. She asked me today, well, who did Cain marry? How did he have children? Who did he marry? It's like, that's a good question. Good question. Old question. But is that the thing that you're going to go to God with and say, okay, God, I got to be honest with you. Like, my whole thing here is like the one thing that's really holding me back in my life to really coming into connection with you is like, who did Cain marry? Is that the question that you have? Or is the question of, where are you? Where are you? My son, I created you for communion. I created you to have conversations, and I have come down in the, quote, cool of the day to have my evening chat with you so that I can hear you talk about your experience in life. And you're hiding in shame because you found out you were naked. Where are you? Which question is most important for you to get the answer to? Which question are you going to go to God with and say, like, oh God, I need to know the answer. Who did Cain marry? How did that happen? How did that whole thing happen? Or are you going to go to God and say, God, I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. God, please, I just feel so lost most of the time. Can you tell, I don't know where I'm at. But I believe that I'm safe when I come to you with this and say, you know what, God, I don't even know what the truth is anymore. Will you help me with this? Can you forgive me for eating the apple? Can you forgive me for running away and hiding from you? You know what I mean? Like, what question? What question are you going to ask? That's the show for today. I was hoping I kind of wanted to get more into the Jordan B. Peterson thing. Listen, we are clearly living in the age of lies, right? The age of deception, the age of shadows. The way, the truth, and the life, it's one person, the Word of God, made flesh, walked amongst us, Jesus Christ, His Royal Highness. Prince of Peace. That's the show for today. Would somebody please remind me I have to go onto my website and take down that Patreon link. I told you guys I would explain this yesterday. Just real quick. My son's molars were coming in over the Christmas holiday, and my wife and I got a fever. Both. We both got horrifically sick. And so it was just a house full of crying babies and sicky parents and drinking lots of water and being achy or whatever. Plus, on top of all that, my paralyzing fear of technology. I didn't get around to it. I'm sorry about that. If you guys want to support the show, it's PayPal. I'm not doing Patreon anymore. I haven't taken it down. In fact, I don't think I even shut it down. But if you want to support the show, I need it. All right? Takes money to make money, champ. PayPal.me/archadvocate is the way. You can find that link on archadvocate.com, which may or may not be going away in March because I paid for 3 years of it, and that 3 years ends in March. And I'm not going to be able to, if the Lord doesn't tarry, then. And to tell you the truth, I don't know that I really need it. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? Archadvocate.com if you want to go to the PayPal link, if you want to support the show. I would appreciate it. PayPal's tip in the jar, man. $5, $10, $100, whatever you guys, you guys have always been very generous with me, and I really do appreciate it. It helps more than you know. That's paypal.me/archadvocate. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you tomorrow.